Loyalty is never given freely. It is purchased, extracted, manufactured through conditions that bind men more tightly than love ever could. To beg for it is to reveal weakness, and weakness invites betrayal. Those who lean on affection will be abandoned when fortune turns. Those who bind with fear and favor will find obedience even in the storm. Men are fickle by design. They admire when it costs them nothing, but they abandon when sacrifice is demanded. Promises given in calm seas dissolve when waves rise. The wise ruler understands that loyalty must be secured by instruments sharper than sentiment. Fear, when measured, creates a boundary men dare not cross. Favor, when calculated, feeds the hunger that keeps them dependent. Together they form a leash stronger than any oath. It is dangerous to believe in devotion without conditions. History is filled with rulers undone by misplaced trust in loyalty sworn with smiles. The knife of betrayal is always polished by familiarity. One must therefore construct loyalty as an edifice brick by brick, with rewards that tether ambition and punishments that sharpen memory. Gratitude fades, fear endures. Gratitude is soft, necessity is hard. A man who fears losing what you grant him will cling tighter than one who loves you without reason. Do not mistake cruelty for power. Fear must be administered like medicine, enough to remind, not enough to poison. Excess breeds hatred, and hatred inspires desperate plots. The ruler who terrifies without calculation digs his own grave. Yet the ruler who inspires no fear at all invites contempt, and contempt is the seed of rebellion. Balance is the law, sufficient fear to command, sufficient favor to placate. Consider loyalty as one considers the walls of a fortress. High walls inspire security, but without soldiers to man them, they are useless. Favor draws men to your side, keeps them invested in your strength, for your survival becomes their survival. Fear ensures they do not desert when cracks appear. Together they man the walls, not out of love for you, but out of calculation for themselves. This is the truest loyalty, because it does not depend on the fragile winds of affection, but on the unchanging principles of necessity. In the theater of power, appearance governs reality. Men must believe they serve out of respect, while in truth they serve out of calculation. A ruler must conceal the machinery of fear behind gestures of generosity, cloak necessity with the appearance of friendship. To reveal the naked structure of control is to provoke rebellion. To dress it in ritual, ceremony, and symbolic gestures is to transform compulsion into habit. Trust, then, not in the heart but in the leash, not in the word but in the chain of consequences. Men will flatter you while plotting against you. They will kneel while whispering treason, yet they will obey if disobedience costs them too dearly, and they will praise if silence threatens their position. Loyalty is not their gift to you, it is the price you force them to pay for their own security. Never beg for loyalty. To beg is to surrender power, manufacture it through fear sharpened like a blade, and favor dispensed like bread. In this way, loyalty is not a virtue bestowed, but a product of necessity, and necessity, unlike affection, does not waver. To demand loyalty is to confess that you do not yet command it, and to confess such weakness is to invite those around you to test the limits of your power. Men are not loyal by nature. They are loyal only to their own advantage, to the preservation of their fortunes, to the protection of their pride. When those align with you, they will stand close. When those drift away, they will disappear without remorse. It is the duty of the ruler to ensure that alignment never dissolves into indifference, to weave their survival so deeply into yours that their betrayal becomes self-destruction. Fear must always be mingled with hope. If men live only in terror of you, they will plot in whispers, and the day will come when desperation breaks them free of dread. But if you combine favor with fear, if you give them reason to see their fortunes rising only through your grace, they will cling to you like vines to stone, knowing that even in restraint they are nourished by your power. Thus fear becomes the wall, and favor the fertile soil, and between the two the structure of loyalty grows. Do not believe that friendship endures beyond convenience. The language of love in politics is a mask, a veil draped over naked ambition. Men embrace you not for who you are, but for what you secure. Remove the gain, and their affection evaporates. Remove the fear, and their obedience falters. But give them both, in calculated measure, and they will call you friend, even as they serve you in chains. Such is the irony of power. The appearance of choice conceals the reality of compulsion. The wise ruler never wastes his faith on gratitude. Gratitude is soft clay in the hands of time, easily reshaped, easily forgotten. Men forget favors as the body forgets pain, but they never forget punishment. Punishment is a scar that shapes conduct. A man who has once suffered for disobedience will measure carefully before testing you again. This is the silent contract that underlies every display of loyalty. It is not love that holds him, but the knowledge that disobedience carries a weight he cannot bear. One must learn to smile while holding the whip behind the back. To govern openly with cruelty is to ignite hatred. To govern openly with leniency is to invite contempt. But to govern with a hidden balance of both is to inspire dependence. Men respect what they cannot easily predict. They fear what they cannot fully see. Keep them uncertain of how far your hand might reach, yet comfort them with the taste of reward when they bend to your will. This duality keeps them alert, and alertness breeds obedience. Loyalty is not an emotion. It is an equation. Favor is the promise of gain, fear the threat of loss. Between them lies necessity, the silent arithmetic that governs men's choices. When they calculate and find that obedience profits more than defiance, they call it loyalty. When they calculate and find that disobedience costs more than gain, they remain loyal still. Strip away illusions, and what remains is not devotion but survival. Your task is to control the equation so that their survival always points toward you. Those who fail to understand this truth are devoured by it. They lean on the faith of their people. They mistake applause for permanence. They hear the honeyed words of advisors and believe them to be true. Then comes the hour when fortune shifts, when gold flows elsewhere, when whispers gather in corners, and they discover that love is a current that cannot be grasped. They fall not because they lacked followers, but because they trusted the wrong foundation. To build on sand is to invite the sea. To build on stone is to endure. Fear and favor are stone. Love is sand. Therefore, cultivate loyalty as one cultivates a garden. Weed out those who grow too wild, water those who bear fruit, and ensure the soil is enriched with both hope and discipline. Men must never forget that their roots draw sustenance from your hand. When they know this, they will not wander. They will cling to you, not out of affection, but out of the unbreakable realization that their life depends on the shade of your rule. Betrayal is never sudden, though it often appears so to the unprepared. It is the slow corrosion of fear, the gradual cooling of favor, the quiet calculation of men who believe they no longer need you. To prevent betrayal, one must prevent the conditions that make it rational. The ruler who keeps his subjects dependent, either through fear of loss or through the promise of gain, is rarely betrayed. It is only when men begin to believe they can survive without you that treason ripens into action. Thus, loyalty is not about their love for you, but about their need for you, and need is the strongest chain in the order of power. Every man carries within him the seed of ambition, and ambition does not rest. Even the most loyal servant dreams of freedom, of fortune, of power untethered from yours. You cannot extinguish this fire, but you can direct it. Give him room to climb, but ensure every step depends on your support. Let him taste advancement, but make clear that advancement ends if he forgets his place. In this way, his ambition fuels your strength, for he rises only through your permission, and in rising he secures your throne. This is not loyalty in the noble sense, but loyalty forged by necessity, loyalty without which he loses everything. Do not deceive yourself into thinking that transparency breeds trust. Men are not reassured by honesty, they are reassured by strength. To reveal all is to invite judgment, and judgment is the first stage of rebellion. Mystery, calculation, and control of appearances preserve authority far more than unguarded truth. To show weakness is to give men the measure of your limits, and once measured, they will test them. Conceal your boundaries, cloak your intentions, and let fear of the unknown keep them in line. What they cannot see, they cannot plot against with confidence. Loyalty is a theater, and in this theater, every actor believes he plays the lead role. Allow them this illusion, but never forget that you are the author of the script. Feed them lines of flattery, assign them roles of importance, and let them bask in the illusion of significance. Yet behind the curtain, you must control the stage directions, ensuring that none can act beyond the confines of your design. The theater must never dissolve into improvisation, for improvisation invites chaos, and chaos is the seedbed of betrayal. Fear must always remain closer than love, for men are more ready to harm the one they love than the one they fear, if they believe harm comes without consequence. A ruler respected without fear is soon ignored. A ruler feared without respect is soon hated. But a ruler who combines both ensures that men serve him even while whispering curses under their breath, for they dare not allow those curses to pass into action. Their fear holds their hatred silent, and their desire for favor keeps them near. There is no permanence in human bonds, only permanence in human needs. The father is loved until his wealth is divided. The friend is trusted until envy corrupts the heart. The ruler is adored until weakness is revealed. To survive, the ruler must bind loyalty not to shifting emotions but to unchanging necessities. Hunger, security, ambition, pride. These are the levers of men's actions, and he who controls them controls loyalty. Sentiment fades, appetite endures. Gratitude dissolve, fear lingers. Respect falters, dependence remain. When men swear loyalty, listen not to their words but to the conditions beneath them. A man who swears allegiance out of affection is already planning his departure. A man who swears because his family's safety depends on you will not abandon you, for to do so is to destroy himself. A man who swears because his fortune grows under your rule will guard you, for in guarding you he guards his own prosperity. Therefore, build loyalty not on declarations, but on structures that cannot be broken without cost. Make betrayal too expensive, and men will call themselves loyal for life. Exile teaches the ruler the harshest lesson. Love is loud when you are powerful, silent when you are fallen. Those who praised you when you sat on the throne vanish when you are cast aside. Their loyalty was never yours. It belonged to the advantages you provided. If you rise again, the same men will return, not out of shame, but out of necessity. In this recognition lies the true knowledge of power. Loyalty is not a bond of the heart, but a transaction of survival. To understand this is to never again be deceived by devotion, and to never again beg for what must be manufactured. Power does not collapse because enemies are strong, but because allies become indifferent. The walls of a city are not breached by the strength of the besieger alone, but by the apathy of those within who no longer feel bound to defend it. Loyalty, therefore, must be tended with the vigilance of a soldier sharpening his blade each morning. It is not enough to inspire obedience once. It must be reinforced daily through gestures of favor and reminders of consequence. Men forget quickly. They forget victories. They forget generosity. They forget promises. What they remember is the pain of punishment and the profit of reward. These two memories must be cultivated until they govern instinct. The ruler who wishes to endure must accept that affection is never the foundation of survival. Affection is a perfume, pleasing, intoxicating, but it evaporates with time and circumstance. Fear and favor are iron and stone. With these, one builds fortresses of loyalty that endure storms. Yet even iron rusts if neglected, even stone crumbles if untended. You must return again and again to the task of renewing dependency, adjusting the balance between fear and favor according to the shifting temper of your people. For what binds today may not bind tomorrow, and what restrains one man may embolden another. There is a subtle art in granting favors. To give too little is to inspire resentment. To To give too much is to breed arrogance. A favor must be enough to satisfy, yet not enough to make a man independent of you. Independence is the seed of betrayal. If he can imagine his fortune without you, he will soon attempt to live without you. But if his advancement always depends on your hand, he will return again and again to the source. The chain of loyalty, then, is not a single link, but a constant forging, a rhythm of giving and withholding, of raising and restraining. Fear, too, requires measure. A man who lives in constant terror ceases to calculate. He becomes reckless, and reckless men are dangerous. The purpose of fear is not to drive men to despair, but to tether them to caution. They must believe that disobedience carries a cost too high to bear, yet they must also believe that obedience still offers hope. Without hope, fear turns to hatred. With hope, fear turns to discipline. Thus, the ruler must master the physician's balance. Enough to cure, not enough to kill. The appearances of loyalty are as important as its substance. Men are swayed by spectacle, and loyalty displayed in public strengthens loyalty in private. Ceremonies, honors, and rituals are the theater through which obedience is sanctified. They allow men to see themselves reflected as faithful servants, even when their hearts harbor doubt. The ruler who neglects appearances loses not only the image of loyalty, but the reality itself, for men act as they are seen to act. To be honored as loyal is to feel compelled to remain so. Never allow loyalty to rest on chance. Fortune favors those who prepare, but she abandons those who rely on her alone. The ruler must build structures of control that do not depend on luck. Spies to detect discontent before it hardens. Laws that punish disobedience before it spreads. Rewards that draw ambition back into service, all are necessary. For loyalty without surveillance is fragile. Loyalty without punishment is hollow. Loyalty without reward is barren. To govern is to weave these elements together into an unbreakable fabric, even if each thread by itself appears weak. Those who imagine they are loved for themselves alone are the most deluded of rulers. They confuse the mask with the face, the performance with the truth. Men do not love rulers. They love the protection, the wealth, the pride, or the security that rulers provide. Strip these away, and the love vanishes as if it never existed. But men always respect necessity. They always remember danger. They always return to the hand that feeds them when hunger strikes. Therefore, do not seek their hearts, seek their instincts. It is instinct, not sentiment, that endures when fortunes turn. Exile, defeat, humiliation, these strip away illusions and reveal the naked truth of loyalty. You will see how quickly men abandon when no fear restrains them, how eagerly they forget when no favor compels them. This knowledge, bitter though it is the truest gift of failure. For when power is regained, the ruler who has walked through such emptiness never again confuses loyalty with devotion. He understands that loyalty is not begged, not granted, not inherited. It is manufactured, imposed, calculated, and renewed. And in that understanding lies the secret to survival in the brutal machinery of power. The ruler must never forget that loyalty is fluid, not fixed. It shifts like the tide, pulled by unseen currents of fear, favor, ambition, and resentment. What seems stable today may be gone tomorrow if the forces beneath the surface change direction. To survive, one must become the master of these tides, never relying on their natural flow, but redirecting them with the gravity of necessity. A ruler who assumes loyalty is permanent is like a sailor who assumes the sea will remain calm. Such a man will drown when the storm rises. The machinery of loyalty is not built on trust, but on control. Trust is an indulgence, and indulgences weaken the hand that grants them. Control is the discipline that ensures continuity. To trust is to believe men will restrain themselves. To control is to make restraint their only choice. The wise ruler chooses control, for control does not rely on faith. It relies on structures that bend men to obedience whether they wish it or not. Even betrayal has its uses when handled with foresight. To punish betrayal publicly is to remind others of the cost of disobedience. To forgive betrayal selectively is to bind men closer through the weight of mercy they do not deserve. But to ignore betrayal is to invite contagion, for disobedience spreads quickly when it appears unpunished. Thus, the ruler must treat betrayal as one treats fire. Stamp it out when it threatens to spread, but allow a controlled flame when it can illuminate your power. Fear of punishment will silence many. Hope for pardon will restrain others. Between the two lies the discipline of loyalty. The ruler must also guard against the poison of familiarity. When men grow too accustomed to your presence, they forget the awe that first bound them to obedience. Overexposure breeds contempt, and contempt corrodes loyalty faster than hatred. Hatred can be managed by fear. Contempt cannot. Therefore, preserve distance. Let your presence be felt more than seen. Your hand be known more than revealed. Appear rarely, reward sparingly, punish decisively. Men respect what remains beyond their full grasp. Loyalty thrives not in abundance but in scarcity. When rewards are given too freely, they lose their value, and gratitude fades before it even forms. When fear is applied too often, men become numb to its sting, and desperation breeds defiance. Scarcity sharpens both favor and fear, making each gesture more significant. A small gift, when rare, secures deeper loyalty than a flood of generosity. A single punishment, when sudden and unexpected, frightens more than constant displays of cruelty. Restraint is as essential as action. Timing is as powerful as strength. In politics, loyalty is never absolute, it is conditional. Men are loyal so long as the cost of disloyalty outweighs the benefit. This condition must never be forgotten, for the moment the balance shifts, loyalty will evaporate. Thus, one must continually adjust the scales, adding weight to the cost of betrayal and promise to the benefit of obedience. This is not cruelty, but necessity, and necessity is the true law of states. Those who refuse to accept this law are consumed by it, and those who master it endure. The illusion of loyalty is sometimes more useful than its reality. Men need to believe in their own devotion, even when it is manufactured by fear and favor. This illusion soothes their conscience, disguises their dependency, and allows them to act with the energy of conviction even while chained by necessity. The ruler must therefore cultivate symbols, rituals, and words that dress compulsion as choice. When men say they serve out of love, though in truth they serve out of fear, their loyalty becomes doubly strong, sustained by illusion, enforced by reality. Thus, loyalty is never to be begged for, never to be trusted, never to be assumed. It is to be engineered, calculated, and imposed with relentless vigilance. The ruler who masters this understands that power is not about love, nor about trust, nor about hope. It is about necessity, and necessity, when shaped by fear and favor, makes loyalty not a fragile gift, but a durable instrument. The ruler who wishes to endure must recognize that men are bound more strongly by chains they do not see than by those they can touch. Visible chains provoke resentment, invisible ones weave themselves into habit. When obedience is disguised as routine, when loyalty is practiced without thought, men cease to question its weight. They begin to call necessity virtue. They begin to confuse survival with devotion. This is the highest form of control, not when men obey because they are forced, but when they obey because they cannot imagine another course. Yet even such control must be guarded, for no structure is eternal. Fortune shifts, enemies rise, allies reconsider their advantage. A ruler must live with the constant awareness that every man around him measures loyalty against profit. To survive, he must always offer more gain in obedience than in betrayal, more fear in defiance than in service. The equation must never be allowed to favor rebellion, for once rebellion appears rational, it will spread like fire in dry grass. It is a mistake to imagine loyalty as unity. Men do not become one body under a ruler. They remain a mass of competing interests, rival ambitions, silent resentments. What the ruler achieves is not unity, but balance, a balance enforced by fear, preserved by favor, and manipulated by appearances. To govern is to juggle the knives of envy and pride without allowing any to fall against your own throat. The illusion of loyalty hides the struggle beneath, but the wise ruler never forgets the blades he cannot see. The weight of loyalty must fall unevenly. To reward all equally is to diminish the value of reward. To punish all equally is to dilute the power of punishment. Men must believe that loyalty brings greater profit than treachery, but also that treachery carries heavier cost than loyalty ever demands. Only then will they calculate consistently in your favor. Treat them not as equals, but as instruments, each tuned differently, each requiring its own pressure, its own indulgence. Uniformity breeds complacency. Careful imbalance breeds vigilance. Remember, too, that loyalty to a ruler is not the same as loyalty to a state. Men may die for their country, but abandon their prince. They may betray the nation if it secures the survival of their family. The ruler must never mistake patriotic cries for personal allegiance. He must fuse his image with the survival of the state itself, so that obedience to him feels inseparable from obedience to the nation. In this way, betrayal of the ruler becomes indistinguishable from betrayal of the homeland, and men who might abandon one will cling to the other. Fear must be refreshed in silence as well as in spectacle. A punishment carried out publicly warns the crowd. A punishment whispered privately chills the heart of the individual. The wise ruler uses both. To be feared only in public makes men bold in private. To be feared only in private makes them insolent in the open. Balance ensures that fear seeps into every chamber of their lives until they breathe it without conscious thought. Fear is the shadow that follows them even when you are absent, the voice that reminds them of limits when no command is spoken. Loyalty thrives when men believe escape is impossible. Walls, laws, debts, dependencies all serve to enclose them within your sphere. The general who owes his rank to you, the merchant who owes his fortune to your favor, the minister whose secrets are known only to you, each is chained not by affection but by necessity. The more doors you close, the fewer paths they can take without you. Loyalty is not their choice. It is the absence of alternatives, and men who have no alternatives cling to the one master they cannot abandon. Thus, loyalty is never a gift, never a sentiment, never a permanent bond. It is a condition, a structure, an arrangement built and rebuilt through fear and favor. To forget this is to place your crown on sand. To remember it is to anchor your throne in stone. For men may betray love, they may betray friendship, they may betray ideals, but they do not betray necessity, not unless they are certain of survival. And the task of the ruler is to ensure they are never certain. The first mistake of the naive ruler is to believe that men serve out of honor. Honor is a word used to disguise convenience. It is invoked loudly in public and abandoned quietly in private when profit dictates. The ruler who trusts in honor discovers too late that it dissolves the moment sacrifice is demanded. But the ruler who builds loyalty on fear and favor knows that when honor fades, necessity remains. Men will betray their honor before they betray their survival, and the wise ruler ensures that survival is tied inexorably to his command. The second mistake is to imagine that loyalty can be inherited. Sons do not carry the obligations of their fathers except when compelled. Advisors who bowed to one prince will not bow to the next unless bound by new chains. Power does not transfer with blood alone. It must be reforged in each generation through the same instruments, fear sharp enough to discourage betrayal and favor abundant enough to encourage dependence. To rely on legacy is to invite rebellion. To rely on necessity is to secure continuity. Loyalty must also be diversified. To place all reliance on one faction, one minister, one army, is to hand your fate to a single blade that may one day turn against you. Divide your sources of loyalty so that none can dominate, and play them against one another so that each clings to you as the balance that prevents their destruction. A ruler who is the sole arbiter of favor becomes indispensable. A ruler who is indispensable cannot easily be betrayed. In this lies the subtle art of survival, ensuring that no man, no faction, no force can imagine victory without your presence. There are moments when betrayal is inevitable. No structure of fear or favor is perfect, no chain unbreakable. The wise ruler anticipates these moments, preparing not to prevent all betrayal but to survive it. When one man turns, another must be ready to prove his loyalty more fiercely. When one faction plots, another must see its advantage in exposing the scheme. Betrayal is not an exception to loyalty but part of its rhythm, a reminder that power rests not in eliminating treachery but in harnessing it to reinforce obedience in those who remain. Appearances must never be neglected. Men judge with their eyes, not with reason. If loyalty is not seen, it is assumed to be absent. Ceremonies of allegiance, public displays of favor, visible punishments, these weave the spectacle that convinces the crowd of stability. A ruler who neglects appearances invites whispers, and whispers grow into plots. It is not enough to be obeyed. One must be seen to be obeyed. For perception feeds reality, and reality without perception collapses into illusion. Fear without favor breeds hatred. Favor without fear breeds arrogance. Either extreme destroys loyalty. The middle path, narrow and treacherous, is the only one that sustains power. You must give enough to bind men's hopes to you, and you must take enough to remind them of their limits. Like a commander rationing food to soldiers, you must keep them hungry enough to fight, but nourished enough to endure. Too much, and they grow lazy. Too little, and they grow desperate. The ruler must always measure, always calculate, always adjust. Consider also the role of time. What secures loyalty today may lose its force tomorrow. Fear grows dull if not refreshed. Favor loses value if not renewed. Men grow accustomed to both, and what once compelled them no longer restrains. Thus, the ruler must act unpredictably, altering the rhythm of reward and punishment so that none can grow secure in expectation. Predictability breeds weakness. Uncertainty breeds vigilance. To live in vigilance is to remain loyal, for no man dares to step out of line when he does not know which line will be punished next. Loyalty, then, is not a virtue but a craft. It is not a bond of the heart but an architecture of necessity. It is designed, adjusted, reinforced, and displayed. The ruler who understands this does not beg for loyalty, does not trust in devotion, does not dream of permanence. He manufactures loyalty, he enforces it, he disguises it as affection, and he ensures it endures only as long as he wills it. This is the reality of power, cold and unchanging, the truth from which survival is forged. Every bond between ruler and subject, between commander and soldier, between master and servant, is at its core a negotiation with fear and favor as its only currency. Strip away the ornaments of words, the rituals of allegiance, the symbols of devotion, and you will find calculation beneath. The soldier fights not because he loves his commander, but because desertion promises certain death and obedience offers a share in plunder. The minister advises not because he esteems his prince, but because his prosperity grows in the shadow of the throne. To mistake these calculations for love is the error of dreamers. To recognize them for what they are is the wisdom of rulers. Men admire ideals but obey necessity. They will speak of justice while pursuing advantage. They will praise virtue while chasing profit. They will cloak their ambition in the language of loyalty while their hearts weigh gain and loss. A ruler must learn to speak their language while never believing their words. Trust what men do under pressure, not what they say in comfort. Their true loyalty is revealed in the moment when disobedience would cost them everything. Until that moment, all pledges are hollow. Even the most faithful servant harbors within him the possibility of betrayal. This is not corruption but human nature. Survival dictates his choices, and survival will always outweigh sentiment. The ruler who laments this truth is unfit for command. The ruler who accepts it prepares accordingly, binding men with structures they cannot escape, dividing power so that no faction grows strong enough to defect, sowing rivalry so that ambition checks ambition, and ensuring that fear whispers even in the silence of loyalty's song. Do not imagine that cruelty alone can sustain obedience. Terror without reward makes men reckless, For a man who has nothing to gain and nothing to lose becomes more dangerous than a loyal ally. Likewise, generosity without restraint makes men arrogant. For a man who expects favor as his right ceases to value it. The secret lies in balance, in the constant recalibration of hope and dread, in making loyalty the most rational path for every man, regardless of his ambition. It is not love that steadies his hand, but the knowledge that betrayal would destroy him. The stage of power requires constant performance. You must appear merciful while being feared, generous while being calculating, approachable while remaining untouchable. Appearances must never be neglected, for men live more by sight than by thought. They are convinced not by the truth of their condition, but by the image you present to them. If they see loyalty, they will believe it exists even when it is manufactured. If they see disorder, they will believe betrayal is near even when obedience remains firm. Control the image, and you control belief. Control belief, and you control action. In exile, one learns that loyalty is a shadow, long and dark while power shines, vanishing as soon as light fades. Those who once swore eternal service disappear like mist when fortune turns against you. Their oaths were never to you, but to the advantage you embodied. This is not treachery, but inevitability. When power returns, so too do they, kneeling again, not out of shame, but out of the same necessity that once drew them away. In this cycle lies the cold lesson. Loyalty is nothing but survival disguised in ritual and words. Therefore, never beg, never hope, never dream of devotion. Manufacture loyalty through the twin forces that men cannot resist: the hunger for favor and the fear of punishment. These are the pillars upon which thrones are built, the levers by which nations are moved, the invisible chains that bind men closer than love ever could. To forget this is to invite ruin. To remember it is to command with clarity. For in the end, loyalty is not the gift of men to rulers. It is the invention of rulers imposed upon men. The ruler who endures is the one who treats loyalty not as a treasure to be discovered, but as a weapon to be forged. Each strike of the hammer is a calculated decision, each layer of steel a mixture of fear and favor, tempered to resist betrayal. A weapon is not born, but made, and once made it must be sharpened, polished, and tested continually. So it is with loyalty. It cannot be found ready. Made in the hearts of men, it must be shaped from their weaknesses, ambitions, and necessities, and then maintained with the vigilance of a soldier guarding the gates of a besieged city. Never forget that the loyalty of the many depends on the loyalty of the few who influence them. A commander's obedience secures the army. A minister's allegiance secures the court. A merchant's dependence secures the markets. Thus, the ruler must focus first on binding the few whose example compels the many. Reward them enough that their prosperity is indistinguishable from yours, but restrain them enough that they can never imagine standing without you. Let them grow strong in your service, but weak in independence, so that they may lead others in loyalty while remaining captives themselves. It is dangerous to allow loyalty to rest solely on fear of punishment, for punishment is a single act, while loyalty requires continuity. Favor must always accompany fear, to give men a reason to remain obedient after the whip has struck. Yet it is equally dangerous to lean too heavily on favor, for generosity excites appetite, and appetite once stirred is never satisfied. Men fed too well on gifts begin to ask why they need the giver. To avoid this, one must alternate between scarcity and abundance, never allowing the people to believe they can predict your hand. Uncertainty preserves their dependence more surely than constant cruelty or endless generosity ever could. The foundation of loyalty lies in necessity, and necessity must be crafted deliberately. Men must see that their wealth is safe only under your rule, that their ambitions are possible only through your permission, that their families survive only because you allow it. Remove one of these pillars and they will hesitate. Remove them all and they will betray without remorse. But keep these bonds intact and they will defend you even when they curse your name in silence, for to curse is harmless, but to betray would destroy them. The most dangerous illusion a ruler can suffer is the belief that love is a defense. Love is a thin shield, easily pierced by fortune's arrows. Men will swear they love you while they measure whether disobedience serves them better. Love costs them nothing to profess. Fear costs them dearly to abandon. Love may inspire them to cheer in your triumph, but fear ensures they do not desert in your fall. Favor may keep them hopeful, but fear keeps them cautious. Between hope and caution lies the territory of obedience, and that is the ground upon which power stands. Those who govern must also master the silence of loyalty. True obedience is not in the words shouted in public, but in the actions carried out in private. Men who loudly profess devotion are often the first to vanish when danger appears. The ruler must therefore watch not the noise of praise, but the quiet of discipline. The loyal man is not the one who flatters most skillfully, but the one who remains at his post when the fire spreads. That man obeys not out of affection, but out of the calculation that leaving would destroy him. His silence is worth more than the loudest chorus of admiration. Thus, loyalty is not a gift from the governed to the ruler, but a structure built by the ruler around the governed. It is not their virtue, but your design, not their devotion, but your calculation. Those who forget this mistake, gratitude for permanence and affection for security. But gratitude is forgotten, affection is betrayed, and permanence is an illusion. Only necessity endures, and necessity is the ruler's most faithful ally. He who manufactures loyalty through fear and favor is never surprised by betrayal, for he knows betrayal is always waiting and has already prepared the price that makes it too costly to attempt. The ruler must always remember that loyalty is most fragile when fortune smiles too brightly. In times of abundance, when fear subsides and favor is plentiful, men grow bold in their thoughts. They begin to imagine that they owe their prosperity to their own strength, not to the hand that allowed it. In comfort, gratitude fades quickly, and the leash of necessity loosens. It is in such moments that betrayal is born, not out of desperation, but out of ambition. The wise ruler interrupts this comfort with reminders of vulnerability, showing that fortune can be withdrawn as swiftly as it was granted. By tempering abundance with sudden restraint, he keeps men alert, aware that their security is never theirs by right but always by his indulgence. Loyalty cannot be permanent because human desire is never satisfied. The man who today clings to you because of wealth will tomorrow seek greater wealth elsewhere. The soldier who today obeys because of discipline will tomorrow question if new command offers him higher rank. The courtier who today flatters will tomorrow whisper against you if he believes another ear more useful. This is not malice, but the nature of appetite. Therefore, the ruler must not hope to abolish shifting desire, but must instead redirect it, ensuring that every path to fulfillment runs through him. To hunger is natural. To betray in pursuit of hunger is inevitable, unless betrayal leads to ruin. In the court of power, betrayal often comes clothed in loyalty. Men will kneel as they conspire, will praise as they calculate, will serve as they prepare to strike. To expect open rebellion is folly. Treachery is almost always masked until the last moment. The ruler must not only watch actions but anticipate motives, not only reward loyalty but test it. Small trials, hidden temptations, quiet opportunities for defiance all reveal the true weight of obedience. He who passes such trials can be trusted for a time, though never absolutely. He who fails them must be broken publicly or drawn closer in false confidence until the moment is right to remove him. Fear alone may chain men's bodies, but it is favor that chains their ambitions. To make a man hope for reward is to trap him more securely than to threaten him with punishment, for hope drives him willingly to obedience. Yet hope must always be uncertain, never guaranteed, for what is certain becomes expected, and what is expected ceases to inspire. The art of rule lies in sustaining men in a state of anticipation close enough to believe their reward is near, distant enough that they continue to strive. In this way, their loyalty is renewed daily, for to abandon you would be to abandon the hope they have pursued so long. A ruler should never confuse forgiveness with weakness. To forgive can be a sharper tool than to punish if forgiveness deepens dependence. A man spared when he expected destruction becomes more loyal than he ever was, not out of affection, but out of the burden of his reprieve. He knows his life now hangs entirely on your will. But forgiveness must be rare, for if given freely, it loses its sting and invites contempt. Like favor, it is most powerful when scarce, when it appears as an exception that magnifies the rule of severity. The foundation of power is not trust, but calculation. Men remain loyal not because they believe in you, but because they believe in the consequences of defiance. Their belief is not spiritual but material, not emotional but practical, and this belief must be cultivated not once but continually, like a fire that will die if not fed. A single act of power may silence rebellion for a season, but it is the constant pressure of fear and the recurring taste of favor that sustain obedience through the years. Thus, loyalty is not an inheritance, but an ongoing conquest. It is never fully won, never fully secure, never beyond doubt. It must be wrestled from men's instincts, bound by their appetites, and reinforced by their fears. The ruler who forgets this lives in illusions. The ruler who remembers it lives in clarity. And clarity is the true crown, for it allows one to command without deception of the self, to rule with the cold certainty that loyalty is nothing more than necessity disguised as devotion. The ruler who survives longest is the one who never ceases to test the bonds that hold his followers. Just as the smith strikes iron to hear its sound and judge its strength, so must the ruler strike the loyalty of men to know whether it is hollow. A follower who breaks at the first test was already a traitor in waiting. A follower who endures the weight of suspicion, of denial, of sudden shifts in favor, proves his dependence. Yet even the strongest bond must not be trusted forever, for time corrodes all metals, and the heart of man is more unstable than iron. Therefore, the wise ruler tests not once but continually, never allowing himself to be surprised by betrayal that could have been anticipated. Loyalty that is not rooted in necessity is like a wall built of sand, impressive in calm weather but useless in the storm. Men will speak of loyalty when times are easy, for in ease, loyalty costs nothing. But when fear presses upon them, when opportunity beckons, when ambition whispers, then the true substance is revealed. To ensure that this revelation does not destroy you, you must construct necessity so thoroughly that even in temptation, men see no path but obedience. To achieve this, one must control not only wealth and position but also reputation, honor, and the machinery of fear. A man who betrays must lose not only his fortune but his name, his family, his place in the memory of others. Only then will loyalty endure, even when ambition tempts him to stray. There is a hidden danger in success. It breeds complacency both in ruler and in ruled. The ruler begins to believe he is secure. The ruled begin to believe they no longer need his protection. From complacency springs negligence, and from negligence springs betrayal. To counter this, the wise ruler disrupts ease with reminders of uncertainty. A sudden change in fortune, a sharp punishment, a withdrawal of favor, all serve to remind men that their security rests not on themselves, but on the hand that governs them. By keeping uncertainty alive, you prevent the decay of vigilance, for vigilance is the root of loyalty. The mask of loyalty is often more dangerous than open defiance. The traitor who bows deeper than the rest, who speaks with greater flattery, who serves with greater eagerness, often hides the sharpest knife, for he knows that suspicion does not fall on the one who praises most loudly. The ruler must therefore distrust excess, must look beyond gestures to the patterns of necessity beneath. If the flatterer could survive without you, he will one day attempt to do so. If his fortune is bound to yours, his flattery, though insincere, is harmless. Always measure not the sound of words, but the weight of dependence. Fear must be made subtle as well as visible. The spectacle of punishment deters the masses, but the whispered knowledge of secret power deters individuals more deeply. Men must know that even their private thoughts are not beyond reach, that betrayal imagined is betrayal already condemned, In this way, loyalty extends beyond action into intention. Fear becomes not only external but internal, a voice that echoes in the conscience of every subject. When fear enters the heart, loyalty ceases to require constant force. It sustains itself through imagination. Loyalty is strongest when it is fragmented. To bind an entire people with one chain is to risk that a single break will free them all. Instead, loyalty must be constructed differently for each faction, each individual, each ambition. The soldier obeys because of discipline and plunder. The minister obeys because of favor and surveillance. The merchant obeys because his trade depends on stability. Each has his own leash, and each leash must be secured differently. In this diversity lies strength, for even if one bond breaks, the others remain intact, and no rebellion can unite without common necessity. The greatest mistake a ruler can make is to confuse loyalty with affection. Affection is volatile, shifting with mood, fortune, rumor, and persuasion. Loyalty born of affection collapses the moment it is tested. But loyalty born of necessity, fear, and favor is immune to persuasion. Men may complain, may despise, may even curse you in private, yet they will not act, for their survival forbids it. A ruler who understands this distinction sees clearly where others are blinded by false devotion. He governs not with illusions, but with instruments, and those instruments, though cold, are far more reliable than the warmth of love. Then understand this truth. No crown is safe upon the head of one who waits to be loved. Love is a shifting current, carried by moods, altered by fortune, poisoned by envy. It flows toward you when your power shines, and it recedes the moment shadows fall. To rest your survival upon it is to build upon water. But fear and favor, these are the stones upon which thrones endure. Fear does not depend on affection, and favor does not depend on memory. They are instruments of necessity, and necessity is the only force that men cannot escape. In the theater of power, appearances matter, but only as masks for the machinery beneath. Let men call you merciful while they tremble at your punishments. Let them call you generous while they beg for your gifts. Let them call you beloved while they live in chains they cannot see. In their words lies your image, but in their dependence lies your security. Do not seek to be adored, seek to be indispensable, for men will always betray what they adore, but they will never betray what they cannot live without. Betrayal will come. It is as certain as death. But the ruler who has built necessity into every life around him does not fall when betrayal strikes. He rises from it, for the betrayer discovers too late that he has destroyed himself more than his master. The edifice of power remains standing because its foundation was never love, never honor, never sentiment. It was the iron of fear and the mortar of favor. This is the final wisdom. Never beg for loyalty. Manufacture it, construct it, impose it. Shape it until men cannot distinguish between choice and compulsion, until their survival and your rule are indistinguishable. For in the end, loyalty is not the devotion of hearts, but the discipline of necessity. And the ruler who grasps this truth commands not only obedience in his time, but fear and memory in the time that follows. That ruler does not merely govern, he endures.